Observers say the international community may have reason to be concerned about Netanyahu's coalition government. It could pose a challenge for its allies. For more on what the election means in Israel and beyond its borders, we're joined by Michael Brooks. He's a political analyst. He's live in New York City. Thanks so much for joining us, Michael. Some people alarmed at the tone of this election. Stephanie's piece showing how some of the viewers there believe that Netanyahu was selling fear on this campaign trail. He's trying to walk back from some of his heated campaign rhetoric. How tough will it be for him to do so? And what's the way forward for him, do you believe?
Good evening, Mike. It's good to be speaking with you. Look, I think it was a campaign tactic, but it was also the most blunt and direct that the Prime Minister has been about what he actually believes. He's a very hardline, very, very right-wing politician. He does not support the creation of a Palestinian state, and he's been coy about it because that's U.S. policy, of course, but clearly, in practice and in actuality, he hasn't supported it, and he made that, blunt and clear to help get the votes out that he needed. And, I would expect some rhetorical softening, but no substantive difference from the Prime Minister.
No differences, but perhaps maybe are we looking at a coalition government that may be even more hardline?
Absolutely. This is definitely going to be a more hardline government. The right did well in these elections. I mean, really, besides the performance actually of the joint list, which was the coalition of Arab and some socialist Jewish parties that did well, they actually finished third. This was a good result for the right. And I think that Prime Minister Netanyahu's strategy is the relations with President Obama are sour. He's going to wait that out, and he's going to assume that either a Republican will take office or he'll do better with someone like President Hillary Clinton. And I think that's the strategy. Wait it out and govern in a very right-wing way, which clearly he's more comfortable with. Those are his politics.
Let's talk a little bit more about foreign policy, but before we go there, let's talk about the domestic agenda, because there was a lot of talk in this election. Here in the United States, we know that old phrase, it's the economy, stupid. A lot of people saying it was the economy, cost of living issues. What happened there? Because it seemed like that was a major complaint against him, and yet it didn't hurt him at all in this election.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting aspect of what happened here. And I think that there are a couple of reasons for this. First, even though he performed actually pretty well, Yair Lapid, who was formerly in coalition with Netanyahu, and the collapse of their partnership kind of led to these elections. He's a kind of centrist politician who basically has built his career on addressing things like inequality and the economic crisis in Israel. Did not deliver when he was in government. The Zionist Union critiqued Netanyahu for these problems really being out of control, which they are in Israel. But apparently they didn't have a compelling enough alternative agenda to overcome Netanyahu's, really we can call it pretty bluntly, fear-mongering on issues like the Arab vote and drumming up his base. So those issues, it wasn't the economy stupid in the end. It was maybe Iran stupid in the end.
Let's talk about that. Iran stupid in the end.
Yeah.
He's been very outspoken about that. He came here to Washington, D.C., of course, talked to a joint session of Congress, came even though the U.S. president really didn't want him coming here before the election. From a foreign policy standpoint, I know you've already mentioned his waiting game with Obama, but what are the challenges he faces in terms of his allies? Or is that even a matter of concern to him?
It might not be a matter of concern to him personally. I don't know what the Prime Minister's calculations are, but it certainly is a concern for Israel. First, there's even much sharper criticism of Israeli conduct from Europe, which is actually an incredibly important trading partner for Israel. So when you have the EU really actually looking at potentially sanctioning products that come out of the occupied territories, that might have a real economic impact on Israel. I think Iran shows a strategic divergence between the United States and Israel. And the issue of the Palestinians, it's not going anywhere. And as soon as Netanyahu says, I will never support a Palestinian state, that removes any last vestige of really any credibility. I mean, how can the United States oppose recognition of a Palestinian state at the UN and say it needs to go through a process with Israel when we have Israeli leadership that has said that's never going to happen? And I think that you're going to see Israel probably become more of a partisan issue, in the sense not that Democrats and Republicans, Democrats will be opposed to Israel, certainly not. Republicans, but it will be Democrats more aligned with the center left in Israel and Republicans more aligned with the hard right, and not just this sort of broad categorical support for Israel that we've seen in the past. And I think you're already seeing that emerge with Iran, and it's going to continue over the course of Bibi's next term. And the irony is that because of how blatant it's become, it's going to help a Palestinian leader like Mahmoud Abbas in his campaign for international opinion.
Michael Brooks, thank you so much for your analysis from New York. Appreciate it.